Hey guys, Dan, and I'm talking to David Jaffe. David, thank you. We're talking about Twisted Metal.
Twisted Metal, yeah.
It's a long-running franchise for Sony. You've been across it for a while now. Tell us how it's evolved in the time that you've been involved.
It's funny. I mean, at its heart, it hasn't, in a good way, in the sense that I think people ask, well, why did you make another Twisted Metal? The essence of Twisted Metal, even though we've changed thematics and styles and game mechanics, the essence of vehicles with weapons strapped to them has been inspiring to us since Mad Max, Smoking the Bandit, Road Warrior, especially the big climactic scene at the end. And so for us, it's kind of like, every time new hardware comes along, we feel we can express that fantasy that we have in our heads better and better and better. And so the spirit of kind of like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street kind of slasher movies meets the Road Warrior, that heartbeat is strong and has been there from the beginning. What's changed is, I think, especially with this new one, is primarily on the surface, out of the box, is online, 16-player online, tons of modes, tons of levels. We've always looked at Twisted Metal as a fighting game in cars. A lot of people go, oh, it's a racing game. It's not a racing game, it's a shooter. To us, it's a cross between like Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter and Mario Kart battle mode, a little bit of Call of Duty thrown in, and it's competition, and whether that's online or local split screen on your couch with 2 to 4 buddies, it really is, with this new one, we're able to express so much more of that fantasy. We've got helicopters in the game for the first time. Today we're going to be showing Juggernaut, which is basically, I mentioned Mad Max Road Warrior. I would be lying if I said that when we were making TM1 back in the day, we didn't look at that climactic scene of Road Warrior and say, how do we make that into a game? Today we're announcing Juggernaut, who's this huge semi-truck that actually, we've always had the front of the cab, we've never been able to have the back. Now we have the back online. It opens up like Spy Hunter in the back. You can let your buddies drive into the back, man gun turrets on the top, man gun turrets on the front. On a surface level, I love it, but on a depth level, it's like, let's take the front gun. The front gun, most powerful turret in the game, super powerful, but it only has a range. Like the Top Gun has a 360 range. It has Swarmer missiles and it has a 50 caliber gun. Both of them draw from the same overheat source, so you have to kind of risk reward which one you want to use. The Tri-Gun on the top of the cab only has about a 230 degree range, so it's really devastating, but you have to be working with the driver of the semi to say, hey look, line up some shots for me because I don't have the range in 360. And so if you've got me driving the semi and you're in the gun and we're both attacking somebody together, we're this devastating, just decimating combination. And so I think when you say kind of, where we're at with the new one, it really is about taking that, the surface and presenting it better because we're next gen, the fantasy and presenting it better, but also really, I know a lot of people look at Twisted Metal and think it's just action. It is that on the surface, but we really look at this, it's a fighting game, it's strategy, it's depth, it's tactics, whether that's level design or meta game from the mode or actual moment-to-moment weapon usage. It's a deep game if you can kind of get your head around it.
It's interesting that you've drawn the line with fighting games rather than driving, shooting simulations and titles like Street Fighter. Tell us about the balancing process then that goes into it and how hard it is to get it right for so many different options.
It's a blast and a nightmare. Every time Scott or I come up with, or anybody on the team honestly comes up with another differentiator, we're excited because we're like, oh my God, that's going to make that vehicle feel even more like a character and give you pros and cons, and it's a nightmare to balance. But when it works, it really is like it all comes together and it really creates this organic sort of sport, which is like vehicle combat sport. It's really a blast when it works.
Now today we've talked a lot about the multiplayer coming in Twisted Metal. Can you tell us a little bit more about the single player and what players can expect from it?
Absolutely. Well, we're showing a little bit, you can kind of see it behind me, of some of our sequences from the in-game stories. We're announcing more of the details at E3, but I can tell your viewers that it's the most varied Twisted Metal campaign we've ever done. We've got some really huge, very cool bosses. It's not Grand Theft Auto, it's not a mission game where you go off and do all, it is built around vehicle combat. That doesn't mean every campaign level is just fighting, but it does mean that sort of at its core, it is about being in a car with guns and rocket launchers and flamethrowers and EMP grenades and sniper rifles leaning out the window, taking guys and other vehicles out. And it's sort of building scenarios around that are varied and keep you interested in amazing bosses and amazing stories. And what I love about this one is the stories, not only I think they look really, really cool, but they all tie together. In the past, we've used a fighting game structure like Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter where every character had its own story and ending, and they never met together. all these stories are a single story now that all tie together and really tells more about the world and the characters. You get to learn a little bit about the origin of Sweet Tooth for the first time. You get to learn about the guy who runs the competition and what he may really be about, a guy who's tracking him, trying to shut him down. And so it really is, I think, the one I'm most proudest of in terms of the single player and the multiplayer of Twisted Metal.
David, a lot of people are really excited about this one, and you've announced a date now. Tell us a little bit about when people can get their hands on this.
Well, I got to be honest. I know we said 10/4/11. I honestly don't know if that's just America or. My understanding is it's worldwide, early October. The specific day, I don't know, but I think it might be worldwide 10/4 everywhere. But I'm not sure. But certainly in October, all over the world.
Watch this space, and we'll have more on GameSpot.com soon.